So, can you tell me what is your favorite television show?
I don't watch much TV.
Good man, put it here. I got rid of my TV a year and a half ago. What's your favorite show?
I don't really have one.
You don't really have one. Well, I'm going to tell you a story about when I was a kid. When I was about 10 years old, there was a show on television called Sky King. Any of the younger children here remember Sky King? Oh, a few of you, yes, okay. And Sky King was all about a cowboy. And I was into westerns. Except this cowboy lived in the 1950s. That's when I was a kid. And he didn't ride a horse. Well, maybe he rode a horse, but more importantly, he flew an airplane. And he had a Cessna airplane. And he would get into all kinds of daring-do and trouble and scrapes with his airplane. Well, one night while we were having supper, my mother and I were watching television. Sky King happened to be on, and the plane was taxiing down the runway, getting ready to take off, and of course they rev the engines when they're getting ready to take off, and it kept getting louder and louder and louder, and I looked at my mother, and my mother looked at me, and we wondered who had turned up the volume on the television set. And it kept getting louder and louder, and all of a sudden there was a bright light flashing in the window. And we suddenly realized the noise wasn't coming from the television set, the noise was outside the house. So we raced to the window, and then I raced outside because overhead, in a blinding snowstorm, was an armed forces helicopter about to land on our house because it was lost in the snow and couldn't see where it was. And we were on the edge of town, and the lights happened to be on in our house, and it was the only lights the guy could see. And here he was hovering over our house, and I waved him away, and he finally moved over a bit and got landed safely instead of coming scrunch down on our house. Now, you know, I learned that sometimes you can be having supper, you can be watching television, you can be going about your life when all of a sudden there can be an interruption. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, because I didn't have a desk or a separate room to study in when I was growing up, studying Latin. Latin was my favorite subject in high school, my favorite subject in university. I still read it all the time, okay? And so here I am deep in Latin when all of a sudden there is this tremendous bang outside our house. Guess what had happened?
A squirrel ran into a tree.
No, this is a much louder sound than a squirrel running into a tree. Two guys were racing, and one guy lost control of his 52 Ford, and kaboom, hit a pole, flipped upside down, and went into a ditch. I learned that even when you're knee-deep in Latin, doing what you love in total silence, all of a sudden, there can be a noise that gets your attention. You know, as you go through life, you live in a world that's full of noise. You've got CD players, iPads, iPods, telephones, portable telephones, smartphones, iPhones, cars that make the earth shake because they got the stereo turned up so loud. You live in a world full of noise. But you know what? Sometimes God will come along and make even a greater noise to get your attention. And the trick is figuring out what the noise is and what it means. And that's what you learn in Sunday school, right back there.